New tonight, imagine going in for a routine MRI only to find yourself stuck to the inside wall of the machine. It happened, and now there are accusations that not enough oversight is putting patient safety at risk. This involves one of the largest medical imaging centers in the nation, based right here in the Valley. Tonight, ABC15 investigator Jennifer Kovaleski digs deeper into the impact on patients and what the state is now doing about it.
Inside this Avondale SimonMed Imaging Center, in May of last year, an Arizona inmate was getting ready for a routine MRI scan when a tech made a troubling mistake, causing serious injuries.
She's in a lot of pain, has flashbacks of it.
Tawny Son is inmate Lacey Winda's sister. She still can't believe it.
People don't think it's real.
But records show what happened to her sister is very real. According to this Arizona Department of Corrections incident report, a SimonMed tech told the prison guard not to remove the metal shackles around Lacey's waist. And it's no secret, MRIs and metal don't mix. The machine is essentially a giant magnet.
As I walked closer to the machine, about 3 to 4 feet away, the magnet flew me off my feet up into the air and threw me into the machine, up into the circular hole.
Tawny's reading a letter Lacey sent to her from prison. It details her perspective from that day last spring.
Immediately, I was in excruciating pain from the belly shackles, pulling me harder and harder around my waist. It felt like I was being ripped in half.
Department of Correction records show Lacey was stuck to the MRI machine because she still had her belly chains on. After being asked to go in and help Lacey, the prison guard reported he was also stuck to the MRI machine because of my gun.
It's just pure stupidity to me.
And she says minutes go by before they hit the emergency shutoff button, despite pleas from Lacey.
Begging for them, just please shut it off, hit the red button. They wouldn't do it.
The DOC officer also said he asked SimonMed techs to turn it off and was told to wait 10 minutes for the fire department. SimonMed's own incident report noted patient Lacey was bleeding and crying in pain, but staff said they were waiting for the lead engineer who told them to wait till he got on scene.
Why wouldn't you just shut it off?
Lacey was taken to the emergency room. The prison took these photos of her injuries. We showed them to Tawny for the first time.
Oh my gosh, just skin just like being bruised.
You can see the deep cut in her left hand, bruises, an imprint from the metal shackles.
That's how hard it was pulling on her.
What do you think needs to be done?
I feel like SimonMed and also prison needs to be held accountable for what happened.
The Arizona Department of Corrections points all the blame at SimonMed, writing in a statement, this secondary medical situation and resulting injuries were caused by errors made by the staff at the imaging lab.
I would describe it as a pretty catastrophic failure.
Tobias Gilk is an MRI safety advocate. He's familiar with the records in this case.
All of these things suggest that best practices were not followed.
Gilk says those best practices include screening patients for metal before they ever step foot in an MRI room.
It's a basic element that sometimes gets skipped or ignored.
In this case, prison records show after the guard removed Lacey's leg shackles, he asked the SimonMed tech if she also needed the belly chains removed, and the guard reported the tech responded, no, they should be fine.
The problem is that there are so few regulations or standards with respect to what constitutes minimum appropriate training in an MRI provider.
Which brings us to the Arizona Department of Health Services.
In my opinion, departments of health are the entity that is best prepared to oversee healthcare services.
But in SimonMed's case, one of the largest imaging centers in the country, records show is getting to play by different regulatory rules in Arizona.
From a regulatory standpoint, MRI safety is really the wild, wild west.
SimonMed operates more than 60 imaging centers across the state. But a search for its license on the health department's website finds no records.
So I would ask, who are they regulated by?
The Department of Health says the SimonMed in Avondale, where Lacey was stuck to the MRI machine, was not regulated by ADHS, which prevented state regulators from investigating or taking any enforcement action, all because of a private practice exemption Arizona's health department granted SimonMed.
I think that is terrible. I don't even understand that.
We found other Arizona imaging centers are licensed as outpatient treatment centers, including nearly 24 Banner imaging locations. So what makes SimonMed special? The state health department refused to answer that question. or tell us when it granted SimonMed the exemption.
I would encourage the state to contemplate where, when, and how they want to allow providers to escape from regulatory oversight.
The ABC15 investigators did our own digging and found state law says private offices are only exempt from licensing if they are owned by a doctor who is treating patients at the clinic. We asked how one licensed physician could provide care at more than 60 locations, or how SimonMed, one of the largest imaging centers in the country, could still be considered physician-owned, especially after this private equity firm announced a major investment in the company 2 years ago. DHS responded by saying the health department is now in the process of reviewing SimonMed's exemption. What would you want to say to state regulators in Arizona?
You're responsible for the well-being of Arizonans. You're responsible for making sure that that health care is delivered in a safe and effective way.
I want them to be sorry to her.
Tawny wants the world to know what happened to her sister at SimonMed.
I don't want it to happen to somebody else. My sister's seriously traumatized from it.
We reached out to SimonMed and asked them 6 specific questions about what we just reported. It didn't answer any of them. Despite not answering our questions, the company claims it is committed to patient safety and did confirm it has a constructive and cooperative relationship with the Arizona Department of Health Services, and we are actively working with that agency to determine the appropriate licensure status of our Arizona facilities. We will continue to ask questions and find out if there are any changes with how SimonMed is regulated. I'm investigator Jennifer Kowaleski, ABC15 Arizona.